Welcome to the 3 Knockdown Rule. Starring Mario Lopez and Steve Kim. Presented by Hustler Casino.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 3 Knockdown Rule is in effect, brought to you by Hustler Casino. I'm Steve Kim, and I'm joined by Mario March of Ides Lopez.
Wow, dude, we're in March.
Yeah, fast.
It's crazy because January felt like 5 months, and then February just, boom, flew by, and here we are. Shout out to Smoking Tim Frazier here.
And we've got a big show, the bout sheet for this particular program. It's the Tko Takeover.
Whoa.
The New York State Athletic Commission rules on Roach against Tank. We have Ask Mario and Final Flurries. But hey, we want to let you know this podcast is sponsored by Hustler Casino, open 24/7 and located just 15 minutes from downtown LA. If you love poker, then head over to Hustler Casino for the new Cash is King Poker cash drawings happening every Monday. They're giving away a whopping $1,000 in cash every other hour from 2 p.m. to 10 p.m. Play at Hustler Casino, located just 15 minutes from downtown LA if you want to win big.
Round 1.
All right, let's get started. Round number 1. The big story was not inside the ring, but what is coming down the pike. The announcement was made that there is now an alliance between Turki Al-Sheikh, Dana White, and Nick Khan. And now TKO Boxing is in full effect. Mario, you actually spent some time with Dana White this past weekend. What's the skinny? What is actually going to be TKO Boxing and this quote-unquote league?
Great weekend to be in Vegas, and shout out to my guy Dana White. He's the absolute coolest, and what a weekend it was. Well, maybe we'll flurry a little bit more about it because I got to attend my first Power Slap event. Let's make sure we revisit that, and then of course UFC on Saturday night. But after the event, I actually got to spend a little time with Dana. We were talking about what TKO is going to look like. And right now, it's sort of a blank canvas. Yeah. They're figuring it out. Turkey's incredibly excited about it. And he wants Dana to sort of run his whole deal here. But it's very, very early. And as far as when the next event is going to be, how they're going to structure the fights, how they're going to acquire fighters themselves, it all sort of remains to be seen. I think in these next couple of weeks, and this is what I'm getting from Dana himself, right? Who's going to be the man sort of quarterbacking this whole deal. They're kind of firing it up and figuring it out. But it sounds incredibly exciting. And if it's anything like the UFC, and I'm pure speculation here, then my impression is that they're going to have a roster of fighters much like the UFC and try to get them almost at a grassroots level, develop them, make them champions, and at the same time, I'm assuming, again, acquiring other fighters that may be either at the end of the contracts or right in the middle of negotiations or what have you. But with the resources behind this, with Turkey and TKO and the brilliance and forward thinking of Dana and Nick Khan, this is a major, major move that can shake up the sport of boxing forever, really. And if I'm a promoter or involved, I'm a little sort of nervous on how this is all going to shake out because these guys can sort of come and kind of wipe the slate clean, if you will.
Here's a couple of thoughts. When I heard the word league, this is what I think when I think of leagues. I think of franchises. I think of a schedule. I think of standings. I think of a point system. And then there's a playoff. And then there is a championship. I don't know if boxing can be a league.
Well, do you consider the UFC a league
I consider them a promotional outfit that has a roster of fighters with a regular group of fights.
Well, I think that's essentially, and again, speculation is what TKO will be. And again, speculating. I think the word league was just used maybe in Night the Riot context, because what else could it be if not that?
Right. And the other thing is, as they made their media rounds last week, they talked to our buddy, my old friend Mike Coppinger over at ESPN. Now, two things really stood out. He says, I want to go back to the 8 weight classes. They're traditional 8 instead of right now. Currently, there's about 17 or 18. Mario, that's going to be a culture shift. And I actually think that's going to be a very tough sell, because if you get rid of the junior lightweights, junior welterweights, super middleweights, there's going to be fighters that are going to be like, oh boy, I'm a tweener.
Kim,
Tough sell.
That's the case at UFC. The UFC has the original weight classes, if you notice, and they have never budged. Power Slap also has the original weight classes. They also have the original. So he's an old school cat. They have stuck to the original 8 classes for both of those promotional outfits. I don't see them changing anytime. And one of the things that I know they want to have some clarity on is the champion. You have no qualms about who the UFC champion is, who the welterweight champion is, and their welterweight much different from the boxing's welterweight to the middleweight to the heavyweight. I think they want a little clarity. They want to have a little more name recognition with the actual champion. You say, there goes the heavyweight champion of the world. Now, ironically, it's consolidated with Usyk. But before, at one point, we had 3-4 heavyweight champions, and that won't be the case.
The other thing, and you dovetailed right into it, they want to have their own belt. They don't really want to have the WBC, WBA,
Sanctioning
IBF,
bodies.
WBO.
Ooh.
Well, I have a question, though. Let's say when this thing takes off, TKO Boxing, they have their own roster and their own schedule of fights. What about the fighters that are not involved? They're still with Top Rank, Golden Boy, Matchroom, Queensberry. I'm just wondering, does this cause more division? And let's say you are the TKO Boxing world champion at a particular weight class. Well, you just might be the best in TKO Boxing Galaxy. What about all the other guys that have the other belts? Is there going to be a cross-referencing of fights and mixing? Are you going to intermingle? Are we going to have bouts? Or is this, in essence, going to create another galaxy of boxing? See, that's the question that I think all these doomsday philosophy, the doomsday prophecies, or those who think this is a panacea for prize fighting, I think it remains to be seen exactly what this is.
What I do know, and again, I pointed out, I think the resources here are deep and vast. So while there may be a little division, I think inevitably, if they continue to open up their wallets, who's not going to want to go over there? I mean, we are in prize fighting, and if they have the biggest prizes, why wouldn't the best talent inevitably eventually go there?
And that's the other point that I want to make. A lot of people are questioning about what about these fighters, because they make a big point. The UFC fighters don't make as much as boxing on the top end. That may or may not be true, but here's the difference. When it comes to mixed martial arts in America, the UFC is a lot like NASCAR. They are the dominant force. They may not be a true monopoly, but when I think of mixed martial arts, I don't think of any other federation except those 3 letters, the UFC. Here in boxing, 99% of your marquee world-class fighters are still tied up to other promoters. So coming right off the bat.
At the moment,
okay, but I'm just saying, Dana White, if he's going to want to get the marquee blue-chip talent, he's going to have to open up the checkbook, and he's going to have to pay premium top dollar. That is the reality.
Well, exactly. And again, when you have someone like His Excellency backing him,
right? We've already seen it.
It's not. We've already seen it done. Look, when the UFC first started back in '93, they didn't have. They eventually grew to the behemoth that they've become in this multi-billion-dollar company, but they ended up buying all the other smaller outfits, Strikeforce, WEC,
Elite XC was around.
Elite XC, the one that just folded. I can't remember that they bought. Oh my God, with the B, I can't believe I'm having a brain fart. But they ended up buying essentially all their competition. I think the game plan, I would assume, is around the same. So although it may take a minute and it may take a little time, it doesn't seem far-fetched. Does it?
Well, let's see where we are in 3 to 5 years. Here's the other point I want to make. It doesn't matter what you do, or who is in charge or what money you have involved. Until you create a system and an impetus where your top level fighters at that championship 12-round level fight more or less 3 to 4 times instead of once or twice, boxing cannot create its next star. And I've said this for a while. Post Canelo, who is that next star? People say Tank Davis, and I'm thinking Tank is a great ticket seller, but consistently, unless he has a guy like Ryan Garcia as the B-side or the dance partner, he does less than 200,000 buys, okay, on average. The other thing is, people have always said, Steve, they're always going to create the next star. Right. In a system where guys were on USA, Friday night fights, they fought more than once or twice a year up until about their 30th fight. That ecosystem has changed, and I don't think it's changed for the best.
That's another thing that Dana was telling me, too, is that they're currently in discussions with many people regarding a service, albeit, and I don't know, he wasn't specific with me, but I'm assuming both network TV and streaming service. So there is going to be a TV component and a deal there. So I think it's all very exciting. Look, when has boxing ever been to the point now where we have people like Dana White involved, Turkey, the Sheikh involved? Like, it's been, I can't even think of it. This is a more exciting time. I know people get a little bit nervous, but I think as far as the visibility and the awareness level for boxing, it's at an all-time high.
And we are going to try to get Dana White as a guest down the line. He's a very busy guy, and I think maybe in a week or two he might have more answers. But again, this is a long-term plan. They're just not suddenly going to roll out and say, here, we've saved boxing.
Right.
It is going to be a process that will take, at least in my view, a couple of years. All right, and we come back. We have more of the 3 Knockdown Rule brought to you by Hustler Casino.
Catch it streaming live right on YouTube.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
$1.2 million.
And I'm losing in this fucking game. What the fuck?
There's a 400K flip. If I win by way, you get 10 grand.
Compromise fucking straddle!
For my fans!
Why? I read it twice!
Wow. All in a call.
I'm not fucking leaving!
Raise it up.
We're back on the 3 Knockdown Rule brought to you by Hustler Casino. Folks, are you looking to get involved with 3 Knockdown Rule and sponsor our program? We have some spots available. Please email us at info@boxbid.io. Once again, that's info@boxbid.io. Boxbid is an online platform that helps professional boxers connect with their fans by providing exclusive Fight Week merchandise, memorabilia, and sponsorships. You can even buy a shout-out on boxbid.io. Boxbid handles our sponsorships, and we are proudly working with them.
News and notes.
All right, moving on. The other big story, and talk about a late Friday news dump. The New York State Athletic Commission made the decision. They are upholding the draw between Lamont Roach and Gervonta Tank Davis. The representatives of Roach wrote a letter asking for a full review and basically trying to get the call reversed either into a unanimous decision victory based on what happened in round 9 and the subsequent scoring, or turning it into a DKO or disqualification. Mario, I'm not surprised. Quite frankly, I believe this is your classic boxing business decision.
It's unfortunate, but it is, and that's exactly what it was, about business. Ideally, I would have liked to have seen Roach get the nod with a caveat that an immediate rematch were to take place. I think that would have satisfied everyone. Be that as it may, I hope that an immediate rematch is enforced and will take place before any other opponent that Tank may face. And I think if he doesn't, it's going to hurt his brand a little bit. And I hope sooner rather than later.
According to Gary Jonas of ProBox, which represents Lamont Roach, he has told various outlets the rematch is virtually done. I believe it
Great.
will happen in the summer. So in a lot of ways, if you go by a rematch clause, generally it is the A side that holds the rematch in case they lost. The B side really has no leverage. Given the fact that it looks like they're going immediately into a rematch, you can almost say, does this draw feel like a win for Lamont Roach?
Well, if he would have got the win, he would have had a little bit more money for this going into this rematch, because we don't know what can happen in this rematch. So he would have, I think he still would have liked it to get it overturned, because he would have had a little bit more in the bargaining table and would have fattened his wallet a little bit more. But at least he is getting the opportunity again, and he has another chance to prove himself.
I wonder if the terms have changed, though, because generally in a rematch clause, the terms are set for a second fight.
That's true.
In a draw, it's a clean slate.
Hey, that's a very good point.
You know?
I mean, I assumed there's only 3 outcomes that can happen in a fight, right? Well, actually 4.
Yeah.
You win, you lose, a draw, or you get disqualified. So other than those 4, they have to be all covered. It's not like something else could possibly happen. What happens outside of those 4? Nothing else can happen.
Yeah, it's interesting. The New York State Athletic Commission, I saw the letter. They basically said, well, it's the referee's discretion. Here's the problem, though, with that term. That means the discretion. What if it's terrible discretion? What if it's the worst call you've ever seen, and it's obvious someone made an error, which I believe Steve Willis did.
He absolutely made an error, but how you're going against... Is it not a written rule? Because it's definitely an unwritten rule.
Oh, it's a rule.
It's a rule.
It's a rule.
Then, of course, where's the discretion come into play? And why would you incentivize that sort of behavior for future matches? It doesn't make any sense.
And then it also said, to a certain degree, well, here's the problem. We don't know what would have happened if the knockdown would have been ruled. We don't know how. Wait, hold on. The reality is, it absolutely would have changed the fight.
Absolutely. Well, what would have happened is it would have been a 10-8 round. What do you mean?
Or at least 10-9.
At least.
Because remember, the knockdown doesn't automatically make it 10-8.
Correct.
You have to kind of win the rest of the round.
But it does make it 10-9.
It does. There's no doubt about that. There's no way 2 of the 3 judges would have then given it to Gervonta Davis.
Correct.
I have a question. Do you think even, no matter what was ruled by the Nevada State Athletic Commission, and even if Lamont Roach did not write this letter, and again, it was not really an appeal, I think it was a request to be technical about it, do you believe that there was public pressure on Tank to go right back into Chapter 2 with Roach?
Absolutely. Like I said, I think it would hurt his brand, and I think it's been a public outcry. Even fans of Tank sort of admit it, and I think him taking and not putting up too much of a fuss about it shows a lot of character on his end too, because he wasn't too negative about it. You're not getting that sort of Devin Haney response. I don't mean for Devin Haney to catch strays here, but it was much different the way Devin Haney reacted post the Ryan Garcia whole debacle. In this, Tank was still kind of a gentleman, and I do believe him that he got some stuff in his hair. But regardless, you took a jab. You chose to go down because you got some stuff in your eye. I'm sorry, man, but that is what it is.
And then you turn your back and you got corner help.
That's
all
right.
of that.
All of that. That's a lot of
These
stuff.
are not unwritten rules. They are
Correct.
actual regulations,
Right.
okay?
Exactly.
The other thing is, from a business standpoint, because of the heat, because this has become more than just a boxing story. Mm-hmm. When podcasts like Shannon Sharp and Ocho Cinco feature boxing, and you look at some of the other podcasts that generally talk about general topics and other sports, or having Lamont Roach on, or just talking about the fight a few days later, there's some real buzz. I'm looking forward to it because there's a train of thought. Well, Lamont Roach fought over his head, he got lucky, and Tank was just overlooking him. I happen to disagree with all of that. In my view, I get the sense that Lamont, given his overall skills, his maturity, and his intelligence, and their history, Lamont might be Frankie Randall to Tank's Julio Cesar Chavez, that no matter how many times they fight, it's going to be real hard work.
I agree. I don't know if that comparison is exactly fair, because that was much later and longer in the career of Chavez. Tank is in his prime, right in his physical prime. So there's a bit of a difference there.
And he has 50 less fights, to be fair.
Yeah, and he's got 50 less fights. Be that as it may, maybe Tank... And I don't know if it was in not focus. Tank doesn't fight often enough to kind of take his eye off the ball, and he's always very well prepared. He doesn't show me any sort of history where he doesn't take his opponent serious. I just think that in this particular fight, he took a little longer to kind of get into his sort of rhythm, and then once he did, he had an answer for him. his opponent had an answer for him, and I thought his stylistically it matched up well, and he wasn't overwhelmed with the so-called size difference. Right, Roach was able to handle it. Tank maybe could come out a little bit more aggressive. He's still the naturally stronger fighter, and there's no doubt that he can obviously win this fight. But I think it'll be competitive. I think you'll have a very prepared Roach with a lot more confidence. We got to watch this fight together. Do you think it takes place in the East Coast?
Well, yes, I do, and I don't know if you can have it in the Beltway area. I don't know if there's a venue that fits. I have a question though. If you're Team Roach, and I don't think you have any say in this. You are still the B-side. Would you have a problem going back to New York?
I don't think so. It worked out well last time. I don't think so. And
really?
I think
after round 9 and all that other stuff?
I'm sorry. Not on the scorecards, but his performance, he performed very well, is what I meant by that. The judges and all that. I think the pressure's on them more. So, you know what I mean?
To be fair.
So they might even overcorrect. So I wouldn't be hesitant on that. You know what I mean?
I'm just going to say this. If it goes back to the Barclays Center where Tank Davis set a record
You think they would do him dirty twice, Kim?
No, what I'm saying is, you're right. Everything you say is correct, but I just want to give the New York State Athletic Commission a little bit of advice. Work out the technical issues with your video replay system, too, because we didn't get into that.
That was highly
that was pretty convenient
right
there. All right, speaking of New York, the announcement was made on July 11th, and I believe this will be on Netflix from the Madison Square Garden. It's the third go-around between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano.
Wow.
Mario, even though on the record Katie Taylor is 2-0, I kind of consider this a rubber match. I think both fights have been very good. I thought Serrano may have won the first fight. I think Taylor counterpunched well back in November on the Mike Tyson undercard. I am looking forward to it. Keep this in mind. The last time they fought, all three judges had this fight 95-94 in favor of Taylor. Close as you can get.
This is sort of like the Vasquez-Marquez trilogy.
Of females.
Yes. The Gotti Ward for the ladies.
Yes.
Good for them.
Yeah.
Good for them, bringing the attention and the awareness to the females there. And I think it's probably financially the best fight for both of these ladies.
They will draw big.
Yeah.
The first fight about 2-3 years ago, I think, drew about 18,000.
Yeah. So we'll see how this one plays out.
Review preview.
Moving on. Okay, so there are fights to talk about. On Tuesday morning, now this will be on the PBC YouTube channel, Keith Thurman, remember him? He'll be taking on Brock Jarvis. He's a man down under. They'll be fighting in Australia.
Wow, one time coming back.
One time. Well, one time every 4 years he seems to fight like the Olympics. Here's a stat. Remember when he unified the title against Danny Garcia way back in 2017 on CBS? I remember watching that with you that was about 2 houses ago for you. He's fought 5 times since then.
Damn.
Yes, that was 2017.
He likes to take his time.
And now this is 2025.
He gives his body a break.
Yeah, he should be the most well-rested fighter in the history of boxing at this level.
Should be able to go like those 100 rounds like back in the day.
Right, and then Wednesday, from the land of the rising sun, Bonsai on ESPN+, WBC flyweight champion Kenshiro Teraji makes a title defense, and Rudy Hernandez's other world champion, WBO flyweight titles, Anthony Olasquaga, takes on Hiroto Kayaguchi. Also, Saturday, from Orlando, Florida on The Zone, Emma Williams takes on Patrice Volney, and it's the return of Edgar Berlanga. Now, get this. Have you ever seen a pay-per-view opponent of a main event? His next fight, he's on an undercard, because that's what he is, against Jonathan Gonzalez. I think him and Rolly Romero have that distinction, because Rolly fought Tank, and I think his next fight, I think may have been on Showtime. Not even so sure is the main event. But Berlanga is matched very, very soft, although he's calling out everyone in the super middleweight division. We'll see what happens. And then on The Zone from Liverpool, England, WBA featherweight champion Nick Ball takes on TJ Doheny. For Nick Ball, this is a must-win situation, because if you want to be in that Inoue sweepstakes, keep this in mind, belts matter.
I don't have a problem with Berlanga, by the way, or Raleigh when they were in the co-main or undercard. They're staying busy. And I think if they look good and they're victorious, then they look at the big picture, and that's the way I think most young fighters. Activity matters.
Yeah,
See,
with the
Frazier knows
hashtag.
that.
Ask Mario. Here's from Anson Wainwright of Ring Magazine. He said, hey, guys, looks like Inoue is facing Ramon Cardenas in May. That will have been Doheny, Kim Lake Sub, and then Cardenas. Others would get criticized for this. What are your thoughts? Hopefully MJ Akhmadaliev in September, while he's not pushed his own cause, he'd be more deserving. Anson, you make a good point. This has not exactly been murderer's row, but there's a little bit of context here in the sense that my nephew Kim got the fight because Sam Goodman kept getting paper cuts over his eye, and they had to back the fight up, and then he got cut twice. But I'm with you. This has not been the most arduous run that he's been through. And also, do you know that the Inoue fight's going to be on a Sunday? And I'm like, and Cardenas, I don't even know if I'm going to go out there. I was looking forward to this because I thought it'd be the Mexican artist David Picasso. He decides to pass on the fight for whatever reason. And I don't know. And I just hope it's not too late Sunday because then I don't want to drive back late in the night. We'll see how. But anyway, that official announcement will be made by Top Rank on Wednesday. Here's one from Ignacio Ortiz. Excuse you. After a tough win last night, what do you guys think about a Joet Gonzalez versus Angelo Leo fight? And does Richardson Hitchens defend his belt against Subriel Matias, or does he vacate? Well, first of all, Joet Gonzalez came through with a tough victory in Long Beach against Arnold Kamagai.
I had some friends that were at that show. Said it was a fun little show.
That was a hard-nosed victory. And look, Joet, he's the modern-day Obakar of featherweights because every time he went up for a title, he only faced guys like Navarrete, Shakur Stevenson, and Venado Lopez. Does he get one more title shot? Maybe. But would he be favored against Angelo Leo? I'm not sure, but I think stylistically this might be the easiest guy. And I'll say this about Richardson Hitchens. That's a guy that needs a belt. If he vacates the belt, there's no impetus for anyone to face him. So, and by the way, Subriel Matias, I think that style fits perfectly for him. Mario, specific question for you from Glitter Road, Clay Stevenson. Hey, Mario, I see that your old boss, Peter Engel, passed away. Did Mr. Engel have any particular impact on your life outside of work?
Well, he had a huge impact on me professionally when I was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And we remained close, and he gave my cousin Gordo a chance, who ended up running some shows for him eventually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Worked his way up as a PA production assistant. And yeah, he passed this, it's been about 2 weeks now, and I got to see him right before the fires hit. And he was happy, and he was at peace, and he was at home. He had a nice, full life, sort of a wild life, to be honest with you. He was a little wild back in the day.
So he had no regrets.
He had no regrets, and got to talk to his son just the other day, and services are coming up. But yeah, I look back on him and that time fondly.
Here's one from the Filthy Casual, Azabachi 137. How would Mario have handled Lamont Roach's appeal had he been the commissioner overseeing the case?
I would have done the right thing, and I would have given him the decision with the caveat that an immediate rematch has to take place.
I have a question.
Is that fair?
For me, it is. And you're at least getting the rematch, okay?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
So now Lamont Roach gets 2 career eye paydays.
Exactly.
And so, but here's the other question, and I can't deny this. If you you set that precedent that we're going to overturn a round and therefore a fight result, are you now setting or putting up a slippery slope?
No, because I don't think the circumstance happens that often. And when I thought it was that blatantly obvious,
right,
then I think it's very clear cut. There wasn't like he slipped or it could be misinterpreted. He took it. He admits he took the knee. He admits he took the knee because something was in his eye. And it was so obvious that his corner went up on the apron. So there's nothing controversial.
There's no gray area.
There's no gray area.
It's black and white.
It's pretty black and white. That's why I don't think. And if it's that clear all the time, then yeah, you should be able to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Last week when I was talking to Larry Merchant about this after he watched the fight, he said, Steve, if you're not going to overturn this, you're never going to overturn anything.
Exactly.
And other people made this point. He goes, Steve, because we disagree with you. It sets a terrible precedent if you don't overturn it. But the reality is, in this business, it is always the A side that gets the breaks during the fight, and they're always the ones that get protected afterwards.
Sort of like the Kansas City Chiefs. They get the benefit of the doubt
Except
every
this
time
year,
to replay.
except when they play
for the
the
Super
Birds.
Bowl. But all the way up there, they got a lot of good calls.
Oh, here's a good guy, Tyrese Bowie. Asked Mario, is Davis versus Roach headed towards a trilogy? If so, do the others champions unify at 35? Because keep this in mind, that rivalry right now is 0-0-1. Remember, it's a draw.
It's a really good question. I think the last fight was pretty exciting, and I think if we get another exciting fight, then maybe, I guess it's all to be negotiated right now. If Tank wins, I don't think there is. I don't think there is.
He
I
takes
think
the
that's
ball and goes home.
He takes the ball and goes home. If Roach were to win,
now we're talking.
I think we're talking about a trilogy.
In terms of the rest of the division, I looked at it last night. In my view, Lomachenko is retired. Okay, for all intents and purposes, they're already setting up interim fights involving Raymond Murataya. Shakur Stevenson seems to be poison. Nobody wants to get into the ring with him, right? And I look at Keyshawn Davis. I think he's looked upon as, at least as it relates to Tank. Tank's thinking, why would I fight a guy with less than 20 fights? That's a no-win situation for me. Now, if Lamont Roach wins, I believe all those fights are in play. But you're talking about unifying. Keep this in mind. Keyshawn and Shakur have made it clear we're best friends. We can't fight. And history has shown, I don't know if you ever remember this, on one of the Mike Tyson Razor Ruddock undercards, Maurice Blocker and Simon Brown were both, I think, undefeated welterweight champions. Not only were they best of friends, they were basically neighbors. And it was a great fight. Blocker got off to a good start using his length and his reach. He's touching him. But Simon Brown's power got to him late. I think he stopped him in the 10th or 11th. It got emotional. They were both crying in the ring. Yeah. But they had to do it. So, and now even
Terry Norris era.
Yeah, but even Terrence Crawford is saying, hold on, guys. This is a business. Make the money.
Exactly.
So, look, what did Ted DiBiase say? Everybody has a price.
Ted DiBiase, WWE reference right there. Okay.
Here's one from Jeff Zimmerman, who works for Fight Hype and other websites, does a very good job. He interviewed Keith one-time Thurman. He said, he told me he would definitely fight Errol Spence, next if the opportunity arises. Wants one of the biggest fights in boxing to make. Are you still interested in it? And you guys agree with him that Shakur Stevenson has a weak resume and doesn't see him worthy to fight Tank next?
Well, there's a couple questions there.
Okay, a couple things. You know what Thurman Spence needs for me to be interested or excited by that?
A time machine.
A hot tub time machine.
I just said that.
Okay, no, but a hot tub time machine.
Why
Not
gotta
just
be
a
hot?
time. Well, they didn't make a movie about a time machine.
Okay.
Here's the other thing.
There's been a few of them.
There's a bit of hypocrisy here. Keith, you literally fight like the Halley's Comet. Once every 87 years, you come around, right? So you're saying that you should be in these fights.
He's like a solar eclipse.
Yeah, but meanwhile, Shakur Stevenson, who has 3 world titles, he's an active fighter, and I think most people, even his most ardent, I would say, anti-fans, would say that guy's still top 10 or top 15 pound for pound, who has a belt, is not worthy of fighting Tank. You see the hypocrisy in this? Rules for me, but not for thee. Sorry, not a fan of this.
Those are rose-colored glasses that you only see the world through in a different perspective. So you bring up Spence, and it got me thinking, too.
He hasn't fought in 2 years, by the way, by July.
And the last time
so
with Fundura.
We want that fight? Really?
What's the latest with him in Fundura now? That's not coming to pass.
As Mike Tyson would say, you know where that went to?
It went to
Bolivian.
Okay.
Okay, and I know someone that worked with them, and they said, Steve, he still kind of wants to do it, but he never felt that fight was going to happen because here's the thing that gets me about Spence. We know the physical issues. We know the way the Crawford fight went. He looked banged up. He didn't even really look like himself to a certain degree.
Yeah. Is that a nice rest, though?
Isn't a very long rest. Some would say a hibernation of a polar bear in Antarctica. Don't you think the best way to bring him back is not to throw him into the Atlantic Ocean of Fundura, but the kiddie pool and dip your pool in and get some tune-up fights?
Keith Thurman?
Based on let's see how he looks against Brock Jarvis. But okay.
They're both coming off nice long rests.
Yes, they are. Here's one from Matty Rolls. With Turkey seemingly stepping off from the Benavidez versus Bivol fight, do you think that means he's eyeing Canelo instead for Benavidez or Bivol after the Crawford fight? or is it just something to get Benavidez down off of a high asking price?
Now, the latest on social media has Bivol Benavidez looking like it's almost there. I mean, obviously, we can't trust social media, but what are you hearing?
That's the banana in the tailpipe. I have it on very, very good authority that they're going to do the rubber match between Beterbiev and Bivol.
Right.
Bottom line. And so all those reports...
And they should.
Right. I think that's a proper fight.
Right.
And we'll see. But down the line...
And then after that, we move on.
I want to see the winner of the Killer Bees against Benavidez. Okay? You want to make boxing great again? Let's start doing stuff like that. And finally, from Steven... How long do you think it will take for the total takeover of boxing by Turkey and company? Mario, can boxing actually be, quote, unquote, taken over given the dynamics of the business and its history and tradition?
Well, the problem is its history. You're going back over 100 years now. So there's so much history there. It's so fragmented. There's so many people. But if anyone can do it, it's this group with TKO because they have endless resources and because just such a vast knowledge of the fight game and wealth.
And resources.
And the resources. It might take a minute, like I said, for people's contracts to run out, to wait them out, to buy them out, possibly. As long as Turkey is immersed in the sport and enchanted and in love with it, then he does have the financial prowess to be able to pull it off. And having someone like Dana, he knows what he's doing. So it is possible. It's just a matter of if he's fickle or not and is going to stay focused and
let's
willing
see what
to
happens.
put into it. Let's see what
happens. A lot of
happens.
forecasts. I don't it's like Sergeant Schultz. I know nothing. So no
Dude,
one
that's
knows
too
it.
old of a reference,
yeah,
dude.
still.
Hogan's Heroes, dude.
Oh, so you got it though.
I got it because I'm old too.
Yeah. Oh, so you finally admitted.
Yeah.
Final flurries.
All right, moving on to Final Flurries. Mario, we stick with boxing. Did you know on this date, as we are taping this fine program, the 3 Knockdown Rule, March 10th, 1986, where does the time go?
You were about 25 then.
Yeah, shut up. Marvelous Marvin Hagler had the last victory of his career as he grounded up the beast, John Mugabe. What a fight that was.
That was a great fight, man. Nobody's seen it. You should watch that on YouTube. That's a great, great fight. Hagler had, 50 fights before he even got a shot at the title?
50 fights, didn't win it until his 54th.
Can you believe that? That's a long, illustrious career for most people now.
And that was
That's unbelievable.
66th fight.
Damn.
Because his next...
Fighting 15-rounders, too.
No, that was a 12. That was a 12.
No, but I'm saying
Right.
he fought
at the
15 rounders at the beginning of his career.
championship run.
Correct.
It was 15 rounds. And
That's
that's how
my
much
point.
the difference of the business. John Mugabe was 25-0, 25 knockouts. And two things happened. The champion said, okay, I'll fight you. And the number one contender didn't just squat and wait for him to retire or vacate. He said, we'll do it right now. This is how much the business has really changed. That fight took place on a Monday night, by the way. And it was actually carried by Showtime.
Really?
That's the first fight they ever did. And the funniest story
What a
about
way
this
to kick
fight,
it off.
not only was it an unbelievable fight, because it was at the Caesars Palace Outdoor
Outside,
Stadium,
yeah.
they had an unbelievable monsoon. The rainiest night they ever had there for a fight.
Like where we were at StubHub?
StubHub in 2018,
Yeah.
Waterworld 2000,
Yeah.
Scott Quigg,
Was it like that?
Oscar Valdez, basically.
Yeah.
And so these kids started selling garbage bags for all the A-listers to cover up. They're getting, according to Aram, by the halfway through the undercard, they're getting about $100 to $200 for a trash bag.
Little entrepreneurs. Good for them.
They were just getting trashed because they ran out of ponchos. So kids started getting Glad trash bags and getting $100, $200.
Damn.
All the A-listers.
That's a lot of money back then,
It's a lot
too.
of money. It's a lot of money now.
Yeah, it's a lot of money now, but like in 86.
And that
damn.
would be the last victory of Marvelous Marvin Hagler's career because next year he fought Sugar Ray Leonard.
Controversial victory.
April of 1987. Staying in the fight game, Mario, UFC. Was that a big upset in the main event?
Not a big upset, but it was in fact an upset. Pereira, talk about activity mattering. I think it was his 5th fight in, I forget how many, like in a year or something, which is incredible if you really think about it, because it's not, you're kicking, you're elbowing, it's the full force, right, of an ass whooping as you can get. And he went up against a guy from Dagestan, Dagestani, oh my gosh, I can't believe I can't remember his name at the moment. It's been a long day for me. My gosh, hold on a second.
I'm drawing a blank here.
No, hold on a second. And he's
Is he in Hogan's Heroes?
no,
Yeah.
he's not in Hogan's Heroes. Stand by. Just stand by,
This
everyone.
is riveting
Hold on, this is
right now.
this is gonna get pulled up.
He's filling the gaps.
This is a big UFC fan.
Uncle
right here.
Lev! Oh my God, I can't believe I can't remember it. I can't believe I can't remember it. Yes, it was a unanimous decision, okay, by Magomed Ankalaev, who, much like Khabib and Islam Makhachev, they're from the same area. He's just a bigger version. Known really as a grappler, but he chose to strike with him. And he's a southpaw, and I don't know if that was the game plan to choose to strike. He's always been a very successful striker. He didn't choose to start grappling with him till about the third round. But he was a southpaw, but he still fought like a wrestler. What I mean by that is he was pressuring him the whole time. Usually it's Pereira the one coming forward, but he was pressuring him the whole time. Quick hands. Pereira was going off with those little leg kicks where he has a lot of success, but I think he wasn't used to the constant pressure
And getting suffocated
and
a
getting
little bit.
suffocated and the fast hands coming at him, and then he started mixing the grappling in the middle rounds, and that changed everything. It was a close fight, but yet it was still a decisive victory for him, and he won by unanimous
Do
decision.
you see anything that if they fought again in, let's say, 4 to 6 months, where it could be changed, the decision?
I think he knows. Yes, because it was a close fight, and Pereira knows, I think, what he's getting into here. He defended the takedowns well, but at the same time, I think he's now worried about this southpaw stance and the pressure and the way he was fighting off his back foot, which he's not used to. So I think if he starts off faster, lets his hands go a little bit more, tries to time him a little bit more because he wasn't able to get his vaunted left hook off, then he could definitely have success. Because again, they were close rounds. But
He's got to create space.
He's got to create space, but man, he had a hell of a run, and I think a rematch will be inevitable. But now you've got a lot of grapplers from middleweight, all these grapplers, Eastern European grapplers that are just kind of taken over the sport. But I want to rewind a little bit because Friday night before, I went to my first power slap event.
Oh, man.
Bro, that shit is bonkers when you see it in person. Whoa, and the sound, and it was packed in there. And Dana was telling me, too, that it was trending in 80-something countries. Because think about it, it's social media clips. All that, and people get knocked out. They're quick little 20, 30-second clips, right? So they go viral. And, like, my kids love it. And it's exactly what you think. You're not allowed, as a competitor, you're not allowed to compete in more than 2 events a year.
Really?
Yes, which I thought was interesting because the undercard bouts are only 3 slaps each. Championship are 5. And obviously, if you get knocked out, then it's over. That's what happened. But yeah, I thought that was interesting because it's not an accumulation of punches like boxing, which you would think is a lot more dangerous. But dude, it's wild and it's a good time when you see it in person.
How many slaps does it usually go?
Yeah.
I saw.
There's 3 slaps each or 5. Like
There were a lot. I thought I'd see a lot more knockouts.
Yeah.
But I didn't. There were a lot of them were like, dang, dude. They took these big old Samoan dudes were slapping like
with their hand?
like it
Oh,
looked
my
like
God.
it looked like a catcher's mitt. And I'm like, how did they stick? But then they got a neck like a Brahma bull. So I'm like, they were able to withstand that. But then the girls too do. And I'm looking at my wife. I go, you know, she wants to cry right now. Look at her eyes. You know, she wants to cry. It was a trip. It's a trip to check out in person. It's fun. You like it actually.
That wide neck dude who keeps getting arrested he's missed out on his opportunity.
The white neck has definitely missed out, but he might have little hands. You never know.
Yeah. Well, meanwhile, while you were in Vegas Saturday night, I was at the Fox Theater in beautiful Pomona, California. Our sponsors, DMG Boxing, had their first show. Very fun atmosphere. We went to the Fox Theater about 2 years ago. Remember, Azad Hovhanessian had that war with Louis Neri.
Oh, that was a fun venue.
That's a
spot,
very
yes.
fun venue. Good luck to them. And Terry Washington, bright young prospect. He was at our viewing party at Hustler Casino.
Yep.
Very exciting. Quicksilver southpaw. He's got a lot of speed. Looks like he's got power. And I believe he might be fighting in April. He knocked out a guy in 1 round, late replacement. So good luck to young Mr. Washington. Mario, let's rewind about 2 weeks ago. You were hanging out with Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Ralph.
Ronnie, Bobby, Ricky, and Mike.
And Bobby and Ralph.
I already said Bobby twice. Ronnie, Bobby,
I
Ricky,
get
and
that
Mike.
mixed-
If you like the girl, who cares who you like?
And Johnny. That's the one that always trips me up.
Johnny.
What
He
was
wasn't
going
in the
on
group
there?
then.
You're grooving with them.
So New Edition, who I think is probably the best boy band of all
I
time.
hate when you call them a boy band.
They are though, bro,
I just
and they're
call
proud.
them a band. I just call them a band.
They're proud.
No, but they were put
wanted-
together organically though. That's a difference.
Well, just like Jackson 5 was, but they
Right,
were just.
but they're not a boy band.
Well, you can technically
I
still
call them
a boy band. Just because they're brothers, you can't call them a boy band? What's the matter with you?
You think the Temptations are a boy band?
That's different. That's different. That's different. Different era. They came in the era when, by the way, I said the best, and there's been some pretty good ones.
They are a boy band.
And never has any boy band had such success outside of the group. They're all platinum selling artists, from BBD, Johnny Gill, Bobby Brown, of course, and Ralph Tresvant. Isn't that crazy? So they invited me to go cover the rehearsal because they're going to have a residency in Vegas, and all of them were there.
I may have to check that out. That's a good one.
Dude, it was great, dude. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and they were real cool, and I got to interview with them, and I got to do a little choreography.
You did one of their famous routines.
Yeah, exactly. From Can You Stand the Rain? And I did a couple, and then I did the other one, wait, can you stand? And what was the other one? Like,
a little bit of
If
love.
It Isn't Love. If It Isn't Love. If It Isn't Love. Come on, I thought you were a fan. You got to know the songs.
Well,
Did you do your Johnny Gill impression for Johnny Gill?
I did not. Put on your red dress. I did not. Bobby, though, my guy right there. He was looking like Cedric the Entertainer that day. I love him. He was
right
great.
now, Bobby looks like he does the walking man, not the running man.
Cold
but
as
I
ice,
like
cold as ice.
Bobby.
I love Bobby.
Did you know
I love
that
Bobby.
see, people don't understand this. Bobby didn't just walk away from New Edition in the late. He was actually fired. Okay? And when they got Johnny Gill, they had one issue with Johnny. You know, he really couldn't dance. Yeah, I've watched all the documentaries. We had a problem with Johnny. We said, Johnny, you better get the black man in you because you have two left feet.
He was
like Whitney.
Yeah.
Like, they're great voices all the time, but
Just
they're like,
serenading.
"Ooh, you're not doing the running man or the RoboCop." So a couple things I thought about this as a New Edition connoisseur.
Mount Rushmore.
My Mount Rushmore.
Okay, let me go and let's see this. Let me go first.
Okay.
Let's say, Cool It Now. Can You Stand the Rain? If It Isn't Love. Mr. Telephone Man.
Ooh.
That's yours.
Okay. Mr. Telephone Man just misses out.
Okay.
As does Popcorn Love. And also, You're Not My Kind of Girl. I always like that song. That one, that's top
Just give
10.
me the ones you chose.
But the Steve Kim Mount Rushmore of New Edition songs. Cool It Now. That's like when they broke
said
out
that, fool. I know.
nationally. Okay.
First rap I ever learned.
Right.
When you got a girl who takes her time, you must slow the pace. You can't mess with the mind. You know.
Yeah, okay.
You feel
So,
yourself.
I
did that as Kids Incorporated.
Can You Stand the Rain? A lot of
Great
people
song.
think
That's my
it's
favorite. That's number one.
I get a lot of that on Twitter.
That's my number one.
Right. And that's when Johnny Gill, and people are like, wow, this guy's going to fit in well.
He's great.
Then If It Isn't Love, which is an unbelievable
Okay, so far
song.
we're 3 for 3.
And the one that we disagree with, and there's actually
I might change my mind. Let's
backstory.
see it.
A Little Bit of Love. A Little Bit of Love is all.
Is all it
And if you
takes.
ever watch the official video,
I have no problem with that.
when you watch the official,
So we got 3 presidents,
Yeah,
right? Can you
right.
name all 4 presidents of the Mount Rushmore?
Yes, but not right now.
Let's see. Let's see.
Lincoln, Washington, Thomas Jefferson. And who's I forgot.
I know you forgot it. Roosevelt.
Roosevelt.
Teddy Rock. We both got stuck on that one the last time. Yeah.
If you ever look at the official video for A Little Bit of Love,
A Little Bit of Love is your
it's
Roosevelt.
actually in like a Wayne's World studio. What was it? Cable access.
Yeah.
They had to finance it themselves because they were going through their dispute with Maurice Starr.
Oh, wow.
Like, they would literally go on these tours all across the country and they'd get dropped off at like their projects in Boston. Here you go, guys, $50 for you. So they had no money and they said, you know what? We're going to invest in ourselves. So it's just a video where these 4 guys did their famous routine that they did all. And if you actually watch that video, I said to myself, because they explained it on a BET show, I said, those guys going places.
All
like,
right.
So that's my Mount Rushmore
Good
right
job.
there.
Well, we agree. I have no problem with that.
Yeah. By the way, last thing, daylight savings. Why aren't we having this the whole year?
Did we save it?
I
Is it
think we
saved?
did,
Did we
but
save
I'm
daylight?
back. I love this time of year. I didn't like it when it got dark at 4:15.
You know what the original reason was for daylight savings? For the farmers.
Right.
Actually, there's no S. It's saving.
Saving.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
well,
He's thinking about his savings.
yeah.
Yeah, I like it all year. I like a longer day. I'd like it to get a little brighter in the morning, though. It's darker in the morning, right?
Yeah.
But I like a longer day.
All right.
Yeah, and I'm feeling good.
All right.
I just make sure I drink enough a lot before, so that way I sleep it off, and then I'm able to shut it down earlier.
Is what we do. All right. Well, we'll be back next week on the 3 Knockdown Rule, brought to you by Hustler Casino on behalf of Mario Lopez and Smoke and Tim Frazier. Till next week. Goodbye, everybody.